Hi everyone, and welcome to January 2019 Patreon video. Happy New Year. So it's been an insane month. I've had quite a few things happen. It started off really good. I decided that this was going to be the month where I wanted to start doing my comic. In order to do my comic, I still needed to design a few more characters. So that's kind of the way that I started the month. I had basically written the first act of the comic, and so I was ready to get started to work on it. So I'm going to show you what I did. And then I'm going to explain to you what happened in the rest of the month. So because Christmas and New Year's got crazy for me, I had some days off, and I thought that I was going to have a lot of time, and it turned out not so much. So here's what happened. So first, last month I shared this page, but I added to it. I started creating this character here. Her name is Sola, and so I started designing her. And once I designed her, well, this is some preliminary stuff, and then here's the next page where I was trying to figure out what her face would look like. And then once I decided what her face would look like, then I finished up designing her. I will share the design with you in a second, but I just wanted to show you that this was my preliminary designs. I did a little bit of experimenting, some just drawing in my sketchbook. So here's some of these drawings. This was done in Prismacolor and a little bit of watercolor here in this background here. And then this is gray brush pen. I don't have it here, but this is a gray brush pen and Prismacolor pencil. And this is just a regular red pencil. Drawing sketch. Didn't really go anywhere. Besides that, this is as far as I went. Okay, so one of the things that I did this month, and by the way, all of this stuff is what the rewards for this month is for all your patrons. So you're going to get copies of all of this. And for silver patrons, you're going to get PSD files. And there's quite a few PSD files. So I'm just going to share. This is one of the digital drawings that I did. So the idea here was to experiment using color. When I'm going to finish doing the finished comic, I wanted it to be in color. Well, I didn't know exactly how I wanted the color to look like. I had the computer color this for me using this new colorize editing thing that it just automatically colorizes it. And so I liked a lot of what it looked like. I liked the lightness of it and stuff, but it was really difficult to control. And the entire point of coloring the comic was to make it as fast as possible. And if you notice, the line is rough. I am not going to ink the comic. I am simply going to just leave it in pencil, in digital pencil, and then color it. So most of the early month, I spent just experimenting with coloring methods. So this is the final, I believe, the final version of the coloring method I was going to use, but it wasn't the only one. Here's another experiment. Here's another experiment. It's a failed experiment. Here's yet another failed experiment. Another failed experiment, like lots of different types of failed experiments. This is the method I'm going to eventually use. So this is another version of this version of the coloring that I did. So again, rough lines, and the idea was to try to make the drawing look the coloring look very labored, while still keeping it simple to do. And I think I figured out a really good way of doing it. So I'm very happy with the coloring method, and I will show you part of the process in a second. But I did finish the comic earlier in this year, so I'm not going to share the finished comic until next month. But this month I did finish, and so this is the final designs of the new characters. This character is Jonathan. Here's the finished final version of Sola, and this is Vlad. And so if you remember, you could look back at my early roughs back here, and you can see that they're all lined up and standing here. So now you see how they all turned out, the final versions of these. So when I write a comic, I tend to kind of write a script for myself, and I have the script on Evernote, and here below is the script. This is I copied and pasted it onto Clip Studio Paint so I could copy and paste the dialogue into word balloons, but also so that I could have the dialogue here, the description of all that stuff. And then I do these kind of rough thumbnails of the comps, the shots, the ideas for the comic. And this is a 4-panel comic, and I had a lot of different ideas for shots, and here's more ideas for shots, and here's more ideas for shots. So all of these are my roughs. This is what I did to come up with shots for the comic. Okay, and then here's the final look of the comic. So this is not the final page. This is part of the coloring process. So part of the coloring process, so here you could see that the lines are still are very, very rough. See, they're very, very rough. But what I did was I did a shadow layer and the selection layer, and then I'm going to just add color. And once I add color, it'll look like that experiment of Isabella that I shared. So this is what the comic looks like. Here's some of the dialogue here. I'm not sharing the full comic. Like the patrons are going to see the full comic with all dialogue, and it's going to be in this rough stage. Next month, you're going to see the final colored version. But this is the rough version of the comic, and it's, like I said, 4 panels long. And I'm going to continue doing more next month until I get at least 4 comic strips done. And then once 4 comic strips are done, I am going to release them in my wife's newsletter. So her author page is aliciaescobar.com, I believe. And if you sign up for her author page, not only will you start getting these comics delivered via email, but you also get a free novel with some of these characters in it, because the comic is based on her characters anyway. So I highly recommend going down there if you want to read the full final comic and get a free novel. Okay, so now what happened during the rest of the month? Half the month I went to work, and half the month I got off. Christmas and New Year's week, I got off. I had free time. I had all the free time in the world to do what I wanted. I was planning on doing all kinds of Discord videos and talk with all the patrons and work on the comic and do a lot of stuff, do a lot of videos, catch up on videos, and do all that stuff. I was also going to try to rest because I'm extremely burned out. Like, I am overwhelmingly burned out. I am so tired. Just thinking about drawing, thinking about doing videos, thinking about doing anything is too much right now. Like, I'm just overwhelmed and I feel overworked and really just burned out. I think I overdid it in the last 3 months. Just killing myself painting and working and producing, and I overdid it, and now I, like I said, I'm trying to recover from being burned out. So I was planning still to do something during my break because I had a break and I had the opportunity to do what I wanted to do. But the last week of work, right before the holiday, before my vacation time, I got horribly sick, just horribly sick. And I was at work and I was dying. And then I made it through the week. And by the time I hit my vacation, I was still horribly sick. So being horribly sick made it so that I had no energy. I felt awful all the time. It was bad. On top of that, I had this like ache on my cheek, and it started getting worse and worse and worse. So by the time Christmas was over, by the time Christmas Day happened, by Christmas Day, I was in an extreme amount of pain. So I went into urgent care to find out what was wrong, and it turns out that I had an infection on my cheek, and I made an appointment with the dentist, an emergency appointment, and then they told me that my wisdom tooth had caused an infection. My wisdom tooth was inside my gums, like up against my molar in the back. It had caused an infection. I needed to get minor surgery to take that wisdom tooth out. By the before the end of the year, I had gotten the surgery and I was in recovery, and by New Year's Day I was still in bed recovering, and it took me like 2 or 3 days to recover, which essentially it just killed my production. It just killed producing any kind of work. I was in bed. I mean, I was resting. It was great. It would have been great if the resting was restful rather than just painful and having to recover. And I mean, I really just didn't want to be in bed. I wanted to at least have the satisfaction having done a little something and then spending time with the kids, and just, well, it was terrible. It was a lousy beginning of the year. And so that leads me to today. And today, I mean, I missed out on creating any videos. I missed out on updating my newsletter, my blog, just, it was all I could do to get the rewards ready. I didn't get to talk to almost anybody on Discord. Like the last time I tried to do anything and share my screen on Discord was the day before I went to get my surgery. The day of my surgery, I had some time, and then I did some sharing there. And at the very last, and then I just spent most of the beginning of my year getting the rewards ready for you patrons. And then I realized I hadn't done the postcard painting, and I was so out of practice. I painted something that just turned out so terrible that I quit, and then I tried, and then today, just a few hours ago, I woke up in the morning, and the very first thing I did was try another painting. And so I did manage to do a painting that I was actually okay with. Remember how I told you guys that my paintings are actually going backwards instead of forwards? So this is the painting you see on the screen. Here it is. I did manage to do this. I did manage over the weekend to watch Aquaman, which I thought was brilliant. I loved it. And I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which, if you have not seen, it's the best feature animated movie ever. Period. I like it more than The Incredibles 2, and those were my favorite animated movies. And I think that's like, it breaks all the molds. It's the type of animated movie I've always wanted any studio to make. It's an animated movie that I think I've always thought that could be made, but no studio would be taking the risk to do it, and Sony took the risk, and it came out brilliant. It's super unique. It doesn't look like a Pixar or a Disney movie. It doesn't look like the same old thing that everybody just keeps putting out. It's extremely unique visually. The designs are amazing, and the story is amazing. If you haven't seen it, watch it. And so, in homage to that movie, I decided to draw Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman, or Spider-Gwen, or Ghost Spider, whatever you want to call her. Here she is. And down below, every patron will automatically get a high-res scan of the postcard. But one lucky patron is going to get the actual postcard. Now, if you notice, it's got like marks here. There's marks on the postcard. Those are staple marks. Do you see here? You can kind of see the staple marks in here. Okay, so here's what I did. I have a friend at work who sees that I do watercolor painting, and he does watercolor painting, and he had this board. And he gave me this board. I'm not quite sure what this board is called, what it's made out of. So, but he told me that what he tends to do when he does watercolor is that he tends to take the watercolor paper and then he soaks the watercolor paper in the tub and soaks it, and then puts the drenched watercolor paper into the soaked watercolor paper, and he puts it on the board, and then he staples it on the board. And what that does is that, because when water is absorbed by the paper, it expands, and then if you staple it, when it dries, the staples prevent the paper from shrinking. It keeps it stretched, and it also keeps it flat. And so I decided I was going to try that out. The only thing that I didn't do that I should have done was added tape on top of the staples so that I could have a white border around that area. I'll probably do that next time if I use this method again. So what I did was I took the paper and I soaked it in the sink, completely soaked it in the sink, and then I stapled it onto this board, and I then painted this painting on the board. Supposedly it wasn't supposed to warp or stretch or whatever, but what happened was when I took it off the board, I decided to do some adjustments to the painting. So I did, and it kind of bent anyway. But it was an interesting experiment. I'm going to keep trying to use it. So there you have it. This is the postcard for this month. And the winner of this postcard is Benny. Benny, congratulations. You win the postcard for this month. And I will be sending it out as soon as I get your information. I think I already have it, so I will make sure that I do. But here we go. So that's the painting. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for being my patron. And very quickly, I'd like to thank by name everybody who is a patron. Aaron Garcia, Ahobo Anastasia, Anthony Rivera, Bill Fisher, Bill Munier, Binny, Brett, Brooke Brown, Chanel Winja, Christina McKay, Craig K, thanks. Yeah, you're a brand new patron. Eric Presteman, Eric Salham, Gallo Viking, George Crawford, George Ward, Heather, Gila Lacefield, Ingrid Hayek, Ken Dirks, Lynn, Mary Charosi, Michael Rasmussen, Nathan Seabolt, Akuk Kenneth, Paul Nass, Phyllis Eitman, Rain, Richard Anthony, Shopping for Noobs, Sterling A. Brooks, Stephen Howard, Steve R., Tamara M. Cotton, Tim Bazarath, Ulf Meyer, William Bell, and Young Stormlord. Thank you guys so much for being a patron. You have no idea how much it means to me and it means to my family that you guys are supporting me and what I do, and hopefully these rewards are yet another thank you from me for your support. Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a happy new year, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.